So, a mysterious object from deep space is racing toward our solar system at 130,000 miles per hour, and Harvard scientists think it might be nuclear powered. This isn't science fiction. The third confirmed visitor from beyond our solar system is showing characteristics that have researchers questioning everything. And that's not even the worst part. This thing appears to be generating its own light, like coming from itself. And this simply is not something that happens in nature. It's something that comets just don't naturally do. And it's also perfectly timed to visit multiple planets with odds so impossible, they suggest internal navigation. And what I'm about to tell you is going to blow your mind. So my name's Tom, I'm with the Daily Beltway. I'm also publisher of the Illinois Review and a White House correspondent for the Next News Network. On July 1st, NASA detected something extraordinary, an object called 3I Atlas hurtling through space from beyond our own solar system. And scientists first thought it was just a comet, and they were wrong. It's producing its own light. Check this out.
That we do have is an analysis of the brightness profile of the glow of 3I Atlas. And have a look at this figure, something that's actually a little difficult to interpret, and I have a hard time interpreting it also, but the one thing to keep in mind is how steep the slope is. It is a projected power law slope of -3, which implies a three-dimensional emissivity profile with a radial power law slope of -4. Now, what all that garbage means is that this object has a much steeper light curve than we have observed in natural comets. So together with a colleague named Eric Quito, Avi Loeb realized that the observed slope of -4 is consistent with an alternative model in which the dust outflow around 3I Atlas is being illuminated by a central source. In other words, this object is creating its own light, not
That is just insane. So Harvard's Dr. Avi Loeb, and I know I butchered the name, guys. I am horrible with names. Everybody's like, if you can't pronounce his name right, you shouldn't be doing this. Well, I suck at names. So everybody sucks at something, and I suck at names. So Harvard's Dr. Avi Loeb published findings showing 3I Atlas may be generating its own light source. And Hubble images reveal a mysterious forward-facing glow from the object's nucleus, not typical sunlight reflection. And Loeb's calculations show this requires an internal energy source, like a possibly being nuclear-powered, I guess? Unlike every comet we've studied, 3I Atlas shows no gas molecules, no ice sublimation, no tail pointing away from the sun. Instead, it leads like literally a leading glow towards the sun, as if something is actively pushing particles ahead of its path. The trajectory is even stranger. This object will visit Mars on October 3rd, when Venus and Jupiter, and Loeb calculated the probability of such perfectly timed encounters to just at 0.0005%. That's statistically impossible. So what do you think? Could this be the first confirmed alien technology? Let me know in the comments. Like, I really want to know. What do you guys think? And it starts getting suspicious from here, though. On October 29th, 3I Atlas reaches its closest approach to the sun, but it will be completely hidden behind our star from Earth's view. Our most powerful telescopes won't be able to observe it during its most critical phase, and Loeb suggests this timing could be intentional. And Dr. Loeb created the Loeb scale, rating objects from 0 for natural, from 10 to confirm alien tech. He rates 3I Atlas at a 6, meaning 60% chance we're looking at an extraterrestrial engineering. And the government's response? Complete silence. No briefings, no transparency, nothing. And Americans deserve to know, and everybody on Earth deserves to know what's approaching our planet. So if you guys found this video valuable, follow for more truth. The mainstream media is not going to tell you. Like, we're growing, so like every single like, comment, and everything else really helps tremendously. And here's what every American needs to understand. Whether 3I Atlas is a space rock or alien technology, our government's silence is unacceptable. We have Harvard scientists publishing papers about potential nuclear-powered spacecraft, yet our leaders say nothing. If this represents advanced technology from another civilization, what does that mean for American sovereignty, or like world sovereignty, our military superiority, our ability to defend the homeland? These aren't science fiction questions anymore. The Trump administration would handle this differently, but Trump has always been transparent about UFO phenomena and committed to declassifying hidden information, right? I mean, I think so. I don't know. You tell me. He understands Americans are strong enough to handle the truth. I guess. I haven't seen the Epstein files. And as this object approaches and disappears behind the sun, remember that knowledge is power. So stay informed, ask questions, and demand accountability. Never let the establishment convince you that you're not entitled to know what's happening above our country. So keep watching the skies and fighting for transparency. The future, quite literally, could depend on it. Have a great one.
Do you hear about that fucking object that's hurtling towards Earth at like 130,000 miles an hour?
No, that might solve all our problems.
Some intergalactic object that's hurt. This guy, Avi Loeb, he's a professor at Harvard that believes it might be an alien probe.
Wow.
And he was talking about the odds of this thing being in the trajectory that it is, entering into our solar system in a direct path with Earth. The odds are extremely low. And at the place where it's doing it, it's when the Earth is the opposite side of the sun, so it's coming from behind the sun. So it makes it difficult to detect, and that this object is in a direct line to come to Earth in 2027.
3i Atlas was strange in my mind the minute I heard about it, because it was discovered at a distance of 4.5 times the Earth-Sun separation, and yet it was discovered with a telescope that is only half a meter in diameter. You know, that's the kind of telescope that some amateur astronomers use. And the reason is because it was relatively bright. If it was a solid object, then it should have been 20 kilometers in diameter, you know, bigger than Manhattan Island, twice as large as the rock that the dinosaurs, 66 million years ago. So it's a giant object. There is a problem with a giant object. There is just not enough material in interstellar space to make such a giant rock and send it our way every few years. I mean, this one was discovered after a few years of surveying the sky. But then I also noticed with two colleagues, we wrote a paper saying that its trajectory is very unusual, because the trajectory is in the plane of the orbit of the Earth around the sun, and within 5 degrees. And the chance of that happening at random is 0.2%. Wow. So it's aligned with the orbital plane of the inner planets. It will come very close to Jupiter, Mars, and Venus. The chance of that happening, even taking the orbit and just changing the arrival time, the chance of it being so close to these planets is 1 in 20,000. You know, it's really small. And also when it arrives closest to the sun, and by the way, mark your calendar, that would be October 29th, 2025. When it gets closest to the sun, the Earth would be on the opposite side of the sun. We wouldn't be able to observe it. We won't see it. So the question is, was that by design? Because that is the point in the trajectory when it can actually break thanks to the gravity of the sun and come at us, so to speak. Also came from the direction of the center of the Milky Way galaxy that is very crowded with stars, and that makes it difficult to detect. And if you wanted to hide yourself, that would be the direction you come from. So I said, let's monitor it. You know, if it doesn't come out from the other side of the sun on October 29th, after October 29th, perhaps the stock market will crash.
There's certainly something going to happen in 2027, and I don't know what it is. Some people say it's a pole reversal, some people say it's an asteroid hitting the planet, some people say it's AI reaching quantum, and then all of a sudden we lose the capacity to have control of our own computer systems. What I am aware of is that everybody's telling me we're on borrowed time. I cannot begin to emphasize how serious a look I get when I say to people who are confiding in me, what's the timescale on this? And they're urging me to be urgent. They're saying to me, people need the right to know this. They have a right to know this. And I'm going, well, what are we talking about? And I feel like shaking these people and saying, for God's sake, just tell me. And they are all constrained by their national security oaths. They want the public to know this.
Sometimes when you want somebody to know a truth, it's so you can set them up to believe a lie. That's coming. I have zero doubt that lie is coming. Specifically, you want me to say it right now, for real, on camera, to be put in the show? So UFOs are real, they've been here a long time, and that's the truth. But the lie is coming. All indications is that lie is going to be that there is a craft slowly making its way to us here on Earth. And that is the lie they're going to want you to believe. It's nuanced how they explain that, the nature of that threat, but that 100% is the lie you are going to be told. You even got a date. People have been whispering a date for a long time. I know specifically what document from the 70s initiated the idea of that lie. Classified document. That is the lie you will be told. You're going to be told that there is a craft on its way to Earth. That's the lie. I sent you 2 texts today with a year. Nope. I'm not going to propagate that lie. Not going to be part of it. Not going to say it to the camera. Everybody knows. Just start paying attention. You've been told the truth about UFOs for a long time now. It's been pretty orchestrated. It's been pretty clear. And it's using people that are telling the truth and want to tell the truth. Ultimately, they want you to know something. They want you to know UFOs are real. Thank God we're finally there. We're all there now. They want you to know the truth. Why they want you to know that truth now? Hope I'm wrong, but it's terrifying. Maybe it's good to get ahead of it. Call it out now before they do.
What do you think about aliens?
I don't think there are any. At one time, I thought that there were, simply based upon documents that I'd seen while I was attached to the intelligence briefing team, the Commander-in-Chief of the Pacific Fleet. At that time, and even for many years afterwards, I did not believe that the government would use me in that way. There was no doubt of my loyalty to my country, and maybe that's why it was so easy to use me, because I wouldn't doubt that what I saw was real. But over the years, I've done a lot of research. And what I've discovered is there's no proof existing anywhere that extraterrestrials are real, or that have ever visited this planet, or that they exist anywhere in the universe. There is not one shred of evidence anywhere. There is lots of evidence, tons of it in fact, that there are a group of people who want us to believe in some extraterrestrial threat from space so that they can cause a world government, bringing together of all the people to resist that external threat. And the first time that I saw any reference to that, I was reading some papers from the Carnegie Endowment Fund, and there was a record of a speech. It was a dinner for Viscount Ishii of the Japanese delegation, the Japanese Imperial delegation, in 1917. And John Dewey was one of the speakers. And the first sentence out of his mouth as I was reading this, I almost fell out of my chair, because this was in 1917, and he said the best way to cause all the people of the world to come together in one world government and end war forever would be if we were attacked by some other species from some other planet. And boy, that just clicked with me, and I knew that this is just another scam. This is the age of deception. There's no doubt about it. And then 8 times during Reagan's administration, he inserted almost the exact same phrase into 8 of his speeches. It's a scam. That's what I can tell you. What they call UFOs, these craft that fly around the sky, are real. But they're not piloted by some little green guy from some other planet. They're owned and operated by the United States of America for one, the Soviet Union for another, probably Great Britain, Canada. I think the first really operable ones were probably manufactured in Western Canada, in the wilderness, in a place especially built to create those machines, like we created the Manhattan Project, and the same kind of secrecy surrounded it. So the technology is real. It's been kept secret, and it's been used to promote this concept that there's an alien threat to this earth. It's just an incredible deception, and I'm just amazed that people have fallen for it in the manner that they have, in the absence of any proof whatsoever. I mean, they cite hearsay as proof.
Well, what about all of the alien abductions?
They're not abductions. They're the results of a tremendously successful and very sophisticated mind control operation, all of which has been in development. They started working on those kinds of things since before World War II. But they have perfected them. On my website, I have a patent of a machine that can read your brain waves, can recombine them in a computer and send them back to you, and make you think things happened that never happened. I mean, you can't get a patent for something like that unless it really works. You have to prove it to the patent office. It works. A patent was issued. Also, the congressional investigations into the intelligence community has revealed the existence of these programs. I mean, there's no secret about it. It's documented. But that's what it is. It's not extraterrestrials coming down. The human body cannot pass through walls and roofs, or through windows that are closed. This is all the product of the imagination and people's willingness to believe something because they want it to be true. I don't know why they would want it to be true. You see, because if it were true, these are not friendly aliens. They're doing some terrible things to people. If I were to kidnap somebody, pass them up through the roof, and take them somewhere, and perform operations on them, and take samples of semen and ova from their, reproductive organs, and plant thoughts in their mind, and all this kind of stuff, and then bring them back, guess where I'd be right now? In prison. It's kidnapping. It's criminal. It's a terrible thing. So there's a morbid sense about all this too, is that people want to be hurt for some reason. I don't understand that. But that certainly is something that somebody needs to look at. Why do people feel that this needs to be real? What in them says I want to be abducted and abused and kidnapped and all of this stuff against my will? Because they seem to take some kind of satisfaction that this is happening.
Now, I have since come to believe that the extraterrestrial portion of all of this is nonsense, but that the technology is real. I believe that many of us were shown these documents over the years so that later we would talk about it. I mean, how can you keep the existence of extraterrestrials, if they were real, a secret? And how could anyone keep quiet knowing that they had seen documentation, official government documents labeled top secret, that expressed that these extraterrestrials were real and had visited this earth? I wanted to know just how true all of this was, and I began a program of research to find out if extraterrestrials were real. The first thing I did was collect every bit of documentation that I could find, both from the Freedom of Information Act, from the research of others, from books that had been printed on the subject of UFOs, and of course through my network of friends in the intelligence community. What I discovered was amazing. What I discovered, ladies and gentlemen, is that there has been a plan in existence since about 1917, and probably before that, to create an artificial extraterrestrial threat to this earth in order to create a one-world totalitarian socialist government. One of the first documents that I found in my search was this one. The Imperial Japanese Mission 1917, a record of the reception throughout the United States of the special mission headed by Viscount Ishii. And when the Imperial Japanese Mission was in New York City, they had a dinner and some pretty famous people spoke at this dinner. One of them was John Dewey. John Dewey is the father of our failing, disastrous public education system. Here's what he said. Listen very carefully. John Dewey, professor of philosophy in Columbia University, who was the next speaker, was listened to with great intentness. He said, quote, "Someone remarked that the best way to unite all the nations on this globe would be an attack from some other planet. In the face of such an alien enemy, people would respond with a sense of their unity of interest and purpose." Unquote. Now, bear in mind, folks, that's 1917. One of the next documents that I found, and I found quite a few, but one that's pretty important, is called the Report from Iron Mountain, The Probability and Desirability of Permanent Peace. Now, I encourage you to find this book, wherever you can find it. I don't know where you can get it, but find it. Page 66. Credibility, in fact, lies at the heart of the problem of developing a political substitute for war. This is where the space race proposals, in many ways so well suited as economic substitutes for war, fall short. The most ambitious and unrealistic space project cannot of itself generate a believable external menace. It has been hotly argued that such a menace would offer the last best hope of peace, etc., by uniting mankind against the danger of destruction by creatures from other planets or from outer space. Experiments have been proposed to test the credibility of an out-of-our-world invasion threat. And it continues on another page. Nevertheless, an effective political substitute for war would require alternate enemies, some of which might seem equally far-fetched in the context of the current war system. It may be, for instance, that gross pollution of the environment can eventually replace the possibility of destruction by nuclear weapons as the principal substitute for war. Are you beginning to get the message, folks? Poisoning of the air and of the principal sources of food and water supply is already well advanced, and at first glance would seem promising in this respect. It constitutes a threat that can be dealt with only through social organization and political power. But from present indications, it will be a generation to a generation and a half before environmental pollution, however severe, will be sufficiently menacing on a global scale to offer a possible basis for a solution. However unlikely some of the possible alternate enemies we have mentioned may seem, we must emphasize that one must be found of credible quality and magnitude if a transition to peace is ever to come about without social disintegration. It is more probable, in our judgment, that such a threat will have to be invented rather than developed from unknown conditions. Ladies and gentlemen, they have created so many alternate enemies in order to bring about their one-world totalitarian socialist state that we don't know which enemy to believe is real or is false, or whether to just toss them all out on their ears. And I think that that is probably going to be the best solution. Disarmament is no accident. All of these bills in Congress to take away our weapons is no accident. The intentional environmental pollution of our lakes, rivers, streams, oceans, forests, everything is no accident, as you just heard. These things were planned many, many years ago. All the bombardment of the public with movies about flying saucers in the 50s, right after the United Nations Treaty was signed and the UN Participation Act was pushed through Congress, and all of the incidents since that have convinced the majority of the American people that flying saucers are real and extraterrestrials exist, and that flying saucers are from an extraterrestrial origin. This is being promulgated in many ways, by television commercials, in the movies, in the newspapers, by creating incidents either real or imagined. I believe, because of my research and because of the extensive documentation that I've found and that is in my book, that this whole scenario has been created to give us an artificial alien threat from outer space. During the Reagan administration, he made 6 speeches, specifically talked about a threat from outer space by some other species from some other planet. 6, ladies and gentlemen. Why would the president repeat the same thing 6 times, tagged on to the ends of speeches by him? The speechwriters did not put that in the speech. Ronald Reagan added it himself.
Perhaps we need some outside universal threat. I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
This was a powerful suggestion to implant into the minds of the people of the world that there really is a threat from some other species, from some other planet to this earth. Now, you people out there have been ignoring the UFO phenomenon for too long. It has all the earmarks of the most successful, most sophisticated mind control operation in the history of the world, and you are ignoring it. What better way to implement a plan to bring about a one-world government than to create the possibility in the minds of the people of the world that we are being threatened from some other species, from some other planet, and do it in a way that if anybody questions it or challenged it or wants to talk about it publicly, that they are ridiculed.
And the ultimate goal is to make the earth look very small, to present the people of the world with an external threat to this earth, a superior race from some other planet, vastly superior to us in intellect, philosophy, and technology, in order to cause the dissolution of nation states, the dissolution of all existing religions, and the formation of the world totalitarian socialist government.
J. Bennett Johnson then showed me through his office at General Dynamics a then top secret stealth. Here was this triangular stealth that wasn't in any of the school books, wasn't being talked about anywhere, wasn't out in the newspapers or anything else. It was being withheld. It was still a top secret weapon system. But I saw this triangular stealth. It looked like a spaceship to me. I'd never seen anything like that. And everything that J. Bennett Johnson was doing and he was involved in certainly was alien to me. So it was easy for me to accept the idea that what was happening was in fact being perpetrated by aliens. I'm not saying that there's no such thing as aliens. That would be foolish for me to even say anything like that at all. But what I am saying is that it was my experience that these were people claiming to be aliens. If there's a reality out there pertaining to any alien influence, we need to sort out the government misinformation and disinformation and mind manipulation techniques that they're using. I know for a fact that the plan is to make all of us feel totally helpless, that what's happening is beyond our realm to affect because we've been taken over by aliens, that our Independence Day is dawning. So beware of that. Understand that those criminals have been keeping information and technology from us under their blanket of national security. They are 25 years ahead of us at least technologically. Can you imagine what they've got now? 25 years ahead? What's happened? What's happened that you're aware of in the last 25 years? Microwave ovens, we've got computerization, and they've had access to all of that to continue their own advancements. They're way ahead. So when they say, it's aliens, and they show us some incredible technology, don't fall into the trap of feeling totally helpless, that this is beyond our realm to affect. Superstition begins where knowledge leaves off. And they have been keeping knowledge from us for a long time. People have all kinds of belief systems. And I'm sure each and every one of you has various and different belief systems as well. Regardless of what your belief system is, it is imperative that you know that these criminals are people. They are within our realm to affect. They need to be held accountable for their actions and their crimes against humanity.
Last card is the alien card. We're going to have to build space-based weapons against aliens, and all of it, he said, is a lie. He didn't mention a timeline, but he said that it was going to be speeding up faster than anybody could possibly imagine. That the effort to put weapons in space was not only based on a lie, but would accelerate past the point of people even understanding it until it was already up there and too late. Good morning. My name is Carol Rosin. In 1974, after being a 6th grade school teacher, I was introduced to the late Dr. Wernher von Braun, in the U.S. the father of rocketry. In my first meeting with him, during that first 3.5 hours, he said to me, Carol, you will stop the weaponization of space. And I said, teachers don't stop until June. He said, no, you have to understand, this is February. And we have to prevent the weaponization of space because there is a lie being told to everyone that the weaponization of space is now first being based upon the evil empire, the Russians. There are many enemies, he said, against whom we're going to build this space-based weapon system. The first of whom was the Russians, which was existing at that time. Then there would be terrorists. Then there would be third world countries. Now we call them rogue nations or nations of concern. Then there would be asteroids. And then he would repeat to me over and over, and the last card, the last card, the last card would be the extraterrestrial threat. Well, at the time, I kind of laughed when he said asteroids, and when he said extraterrestrials, I knew I wasn't going to deal with that subject. And now we hear on the news just today, this week, that they've slid in another enemy. Only this time we're going to protect our satellites. In other words, we have to have some reason to spend these trillions, to waste these dollars on a space-based weapon system, and they're all lies. This is a system, he told me, that would never protect anyone. Even back then, he talked about suitcase bombs. He talked about chemical, viral, bacterial, biological warfare, that these space-based weapons would never protect us against. And then he told me that, in fact, if you travel around the world, which I did after he died in 1977, I met with people in over 100 countries who were friends. They didn't want to build space-based weapons. I became a space and missile defense consultant. And I worked with people around the world. I became an advisor to the People's Republic of China. They don't want to build a space-based weapon system. And he told me back then that they didn't. He said, go to Russia. They're considered to be the enemy. I got on a plane by myself. When I got to Russia, I had a list of people that I had read out of the newspaper. Chernenko was in office then. He was the only one I didn't get a chance to meet. They introduced me to everyone when I got there. And when I got back, I said, oh my Lord, this man is telling the truth. There is no threat. And I've been waiting until this day for 27 years, and I'm expecting the spin to happen, because he also explained to me that as a military strategist, as a person who worked on the MX missile, which I did later, he said, you will find that there is going to be a spin to find some enemy against whom we have to build space-based weapons. And now we should expect the spin, because he said part of the formula for the intelligence community is if they might have a weapon, then we have to consider that they do have these weapons. So now they do have these weapons, so now we have to build these weapon systems. And that's the formula, except that it's all based on a lie. And we have witnesses here today that have shown you that these extraterrestrial beings, that these craft that have come here are now not UFOs, they're identified flying objects, and we know that they have beings in them. And we have witnesses here who have told you that they can shut down our missile silos, they can stop a rocket going into space that's a test. We have witnesses here who have worked in the classified departments who have the courage to come forward here to support what Wernher von Braun told me back in 1974 to 77. And I will testify before the Congress that when I founded the Institute for Security and Cooperation in Outer Space, which I shut down a few years ago because I didn't believe we had a chance with this huge, integrated around the world, complex weapon system, that we had any chance at all of transforming that war industry into a space industry that could provide benefits, like Dr. Greer has said, of global warming. We can end that situation of that problem. We can end the energy crisis. We can build now non-polluting technologies. Wernher von Braun used to tell me that we could have cars back then that drove around off the ground. He described this to me on beams so that we have no pollution on this planet. And we can solve the problems of the people that are urgent and potential, and the other animals and the other cultures on Earth and in space. And we can end the arms race without dislocating the industry jobs, without disrupting the economy, by transforming, Wernher von Braun told me, the war industry into a global cooperative space industry that will provide, he said, finally, more jobs and profits on this planet than during any hot or cold wartime, more products and services that can be applied directly to solving the problems of this planet. And we can have a whole planet now that lives in peace on Earth, with all the cultures on Earth, and with all the extraterrestrial cultures in space. And these are words that Wernher von Braun told me in 1974, and I will testify before the Congress under oath about everything I have said and more. Thank you.